And that way it lets people,
There we go.
that way it lets people know when they enter the room as well that it's being recorded.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm gonna mute and start letting folks in.
Welcome in, everybody. We'll begin in just a moment as everyone enters in. All right. Well, as everyone is joining in with us here, just wanted to welcome everyone and take a brief moment to thank you all for attending our TAM Awards 101 webinar, or How Do I Write the Perfect Award Nomination, hosted by us here at the Tennessee Association of Museums. My name is Charles Gouge. I'm the TAM president, and today we're very fortunate to be joined by Tori Mason, who is our illustrious awards chair, as well as Christopher Grisham, a longtime member of the TAM Awards Committee. And we also have Debbie Shaw, who will be on standby with us as well, helping to run the Zoom today to facilitate any questions that you may have about the process of how to submit, again, the perfect award nomination. The goal here being is to submit it, and it's certainly going to be perfect right off the bat in its initial submission, right? As we will have lots of knowledge imparted on us on the different qualifications that the committee has set for us. And if anyone does have any questions you'd like to throw out, again, just feel free to put those in the chat, and Debbie and I will be monitoring those as we go along. As Tori and Chris take us through the TAM Awards submission process and kind of what to expect and what to have prepared on the front end. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tori and Chris.
Thank you, Charles, and thanks everybody for joining us. This is going to be pretty casual. We've got a few slides that we'll go through that kind of talk about some of the key things that we in the committee run into every year, just some things that we run into every year. Like Charles said, just if you've got a question that comes up in the middle of this, just type it in the chat. We will have plenty of time at the end of this too for questions if anything comes up. And if something doesn't get covered in this discussion, feel free to ask us about that too. This is, for us to help you. That's the biggest thing. And with that, we're here for you all. We are your committee. We are a committee of 10 individuals plus myself. And we are here to make sure that we can help you create the best nomination possible to give you the best possible outcome. We've got our list of committee members. Debbie's going to put that list I think, a link to that list in the chat, but I've also got the list that I can show you. We've got on the website a link to the whole list of committee members, their contact information, the areas and the counties that they are responsible for. So if you don't know who your direct representative is, you can go check that list, look up your county, and you'll find that person. So that's who you talk to if you've got a specific question. Reach out to your committee member. If you've got specific questions that don't get answered here, if you also maybe they're busy, they've got things going on, they're out of town, and you need to know something right away, you can always email me. I didn't put my email address anywhere. I just realized I didn't put it anywhere on this presentation, but my email address is tmason, TMASON, just like a jar, at nashvillezoo.org. So like I said, we are here for you, to help you out, to support you, to help you create the best possible nomination for the best possible outcome. So things that we need as a committee, and these are things that we've seen time and time again, that we really need these things to help us. The first thing that you all need to do when you're writing your nomination is assume that no one on the committee has seen what you're nominating, right? You know, we've got a really big state from tip to tip and top to bottom, and I may be in Nashville and I may be able to see something that some of the Nashville museums have done, but I probably haven't seen something from Memphis or something from Chattanooga or something from Knoxville. So assume as you're writing your nomination that nobody has seen what you're nominating. All right, that's key. Narrative is so important. And you'll see, you know, on the nomination form, we've got it broken down into different groupings and different specific things. And with a word limit, you know, we don't want you to go on and on and on, precise and to the point. But narrative is really important. This is where you're going to sell yourself. This is where you're going to woo us. You're going to show us all the amazing things that you've done and why everything you've done is so important. So narrative is key. Another thing that we've run into are photos. Again, you go back to assuming that we haven't seen what you're nominating. We need to be able to visualize what you're telling us. So we need pictures. We need good, clear pictures with context. What are we looking at? How does this fit into your nomination form? And something to keep in mind when you're adding pictures, these are pictures that I usually take off of the nomination forms for the presentation. So if it's a little teeny low JPEG picture, it's probably not going to work on a big screen during our presentation at the award ceremony. So kind of keep that in mind. That's, you know, maybe a little lesser point, but it's still something that can help us out. But again, photos are really important. And again, I can't say this enough, detail. The more detail you can get in that word limit, the better. Again, tell us what you're doing, why it's important, and why you believe in the fact that this should get an award. So these are the big three things to focus on. What did you do? Was it an exhibit? Was it a program? Was it a product? Was it an event? What was it you did? How did you do it? You know, what was your budget? How much research went into it? How much planning went into it? How many people were involved? How did you make this happen? And then why did you do it? Mission is important. And I'm going to talk about, oh, yes.
I'm so sorry. I don't want to interrupt you, but is your screen shared?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you seeing it? Is everybody seeing the screen okay?
Everybody else can see it? Okay, great. Sorry. Just thanks.
That's okay. Thanks for checking. Again, why did you do it? Is it mission driven? And I'm going to talk about mission in a minute, but keep that in the back of your mind. And the impact, and this is another one I'll go over in a little more detail, about why did you do it, and who did it impact, and how did it impact them. So those are the big three things that we really look at. Scoring, we always talk a little bit about scoring and how that works. Like I mentioned, we are a 10-member committee plus the chair. Everybody's a volunteer. We've got folks from all areas, all 3 big areas of the state. When the nominations come in, we look them over and we score them. I'm going to show you our scoring sheet here in a minute on a 1 to 5 scale, with 5 being the highest. Each committee member reviews and scores each entry independently. Last year we had 99 entries. 99. It was the biggest amount of entries that we've ever had. Every single committee member looks at every single nomination. That's how much time we put into this. This is how much we love you. And then we meet in February and we go over that scoring. So everybody's got their individual scoring sheet. We'll look at, you know, this category and this museum, and everybody will talk about what their score was and why they scored them that way. And then all 11 of those scores get averaged. And when that average comes out to either a 5.0 to a 4.5, that's an award of excellence. When it comes out to a 4.49 to a 3.75, that's an award of commendation. Committee members do not vote on their own institution's nominations. And I want to make sure everybody understands that. So when the Tennessee State Museum nominates something, Chris does not vote on any of those nominations. He sits out. So his score does not count. There is no score from him. That's how that works. I want to make sure everybody understands that. This is our scoring sheet, right? Chris created this beautiful masterpiece a few years back. We don't have to do anything other than pop in our numbers. And you can look and see, it's kind of fuzzy. It's a little bit fuzzy. But you can see we've got each of the individual areas that you are writing your narrative in that we score. Vision and mission, the project description. Why is this outstanding? 4 separate areas. The impact, again, that impact area is really important. And then your budget. And then we can make notes. You can see, you know, on Museum A, my final score was 4.1. So we'll look at all those final scores. Those are the ones that get averaged, right? Is that clear as mud? This sheet is a lifesaver, though. I can't thank Chris enough for creating this and using his Excel masterpiece genius skills. You want to say anything about it, Chris?
Yeah, we've tweaked the sheet a few times to try, you know, as we've changed different aspects, because we do this year after year at the meeting. We're like, oh, okay, you know, if we see comments, you know, it's submissions basically that have a similar problem, we realize, oh, maybe something we did was unclear. So we do that. So we tweak the sheet a little bit, but ultimately the goal is in order to make it as straightforward as possible for everybody on there to be able to insert their scores in quick and easy, come out with the same average. That way we're also all using the same math that we can use when we get together in the meeting and score everything the same. So it's to try and take as much of the guesswork or the, you know, this member does things this way, this member does things this way, this member does things this way, and really format that to where we're all kind of on the same page, for lack of a, well, pun not intended. But so ideally it's a good tool to help us kind of all start on the same place, and then when we get together in our meetings we can get to go from there.
Thank you, Chris. And you might notice, I don't know if my cursor is going to work, but like a couple places you can see like a 4.5, a 4.75. We do allow for that 0.25 increments. Like if you think something was really great, but it just wasn't quite a 5, you can give it a 4.75. So we do go in those increments as well. So that's our scoring sheet. That's our scoring process. That's how we go through the whole judging process. All right. So the things that we consider, I kind of touched on this. Is it mission related? And again, I'm going to go into that into a little bit more detail. What's the impact? That's very important. Who did your program or exhibit serve, and how did they respond to it? What's your budget, right? If we look at budget, you know, we look at the museum sizes based on their budget. So we've got the little guys who have hardly any budget at all, you know, a $50,000 or less budget annually, all the way up to the big guns that have a multi-million-dollar budget. we're going to expect big things from the bigger museums. You know, if one of the multi-million-dollar budget museums submits an exhibit nomination that's just kind of a standard exhibit, we're going to maybe consider that a little differently than if that type of exhibit came from a museum that's run strictly by volunteers or has a much less budget. Does that make sense? So those are some of the things we also consider. All right, mission. Let's talk a little bit about mission. If you're doing something that doesn't come back to your mission, why are you doing it? Right? So here's an example of a nomination. Museum X submits a nomination for an exhibit of items donated by a local war hero. Their mission is to inspire and educate people through preservation, innovation, and interpretation. Pretty standard mission. So for their nomination, how does this nomination demonstrate compliance? By showcasing a collection of items donated by Mr. Jones, a large number of school children came to the museum. All right, well, that's pretty vague, right? As me as a committee member looking at this, I don't see anything that goes back to the words in their mission, inspire and educate. They had a large number of school children, so they're kind of implying that they educated those school children, but they don't really talk about preservation. They're showcasing a collection, but are they preserving it? So let's see how this was maybe made a little bit stronger. So I highlighted some words here: to inspire and educate people through preservation, innovation, and interpretation. So if they rewrote this nomination clause, the items preserved and interpreted in our exhibit, oh, there's a couple of keywords, right? Inspired and educated a large number of school children on the importance of Mr. Jones' contributions to the war. Can you all see how that was a stronger nomination than the one prior to it? Let's go back. By showcasing a collection of items donated by Mr. Jones, a large number of school children came to the museum. But these items were preserved and interpreted, and they inspired and educated school children. Just those key words, guys, just those key words. It may seem obvious to you when you're writing it, but when we're looking at it as the committee, we're looking to see how it's going to tie into your mission. That's important. All right, moving on. Let's talk a little bit more about impact. I kind of talked just kind of briefly about it. Visitor statistics, right? Was your program family focused? Was it kid focused? Was it an adults only program? Was your exhibit something that was good for all ages? You know, what are the demographics that came to your program or your project? Adults, teens, seniors, children. Did you have a lot of visitors, or was it mostly local people? And this is so important. How many visitors attended? I mean, it's not always possible for you to get exact numbers, and we don't expect exact numbers. But even if you come up with approximately 250 people attended during these dates, then that's good enough. But that's important for us to know. You know, if you've got an exhibit and that was open for 6 months and you don't tell us how many visitors attended, we don't know. We don't know how to judge that. So that's a little bit about visitors. Evaluation data. I know evaluations, that's kind of a scary word for a lot of people, right? But it doesn't have to be formal. It can be. A lot of places do formal evaluations and surveys. They send out a survey after a program. They do. They have staff that are walking around with iPads that ask you how you felt about this program. It can definitely be formal, but it doesn't have to be. It can be your social media comments. You know, it can be, oh, we attended this program and we just really loved it. You know, it can be something as simple as that, but something that's written down that you can share with us that came off of a comment card, a social media comment, something tangible that we can see, not just, oh, we were told this. Well, that's great, but we want to be able to see it. An example, right? Same museum, same exhibit. How did this project impact your visitors and community? They wrote a pretty nice little description here. We had the most children we've ever had. We even had members of Mr. Jones' family come to visit. Guests said they really liked the exhibit. So that's okay. The most school children they ever had, that's pretty impressive, but I'd sure like to know a little bit more about that. And guests said they really liked the exhibit. Well, that's nice. Let's see how we can make this one better. All right. We had 2,500 school children from first to fifth grade visit the museum in the 3 months it was open. That's impressive. Those are numbers that make me go, wow, that's pretty cool. And then they add the most we've had in one season. Mr. Jones' daughter and son came to the museum and were visibly moved seeing their father's items on display. That's pretty impactful. They told us more than one time how grateful they were. That's very impactful. And then we had many positive comments on social media, including these. You see how that makes that a much stronger nomination than the one prior to it? And we had the most school children we've ever had. Oh, we had 2,500 school children between first and fifth grade. Much, much more impactful, gives us as a committee a much better idea of the impact of this exhibit and how special it was and how good it was. And it's probably going to help us to score it higher than if it would have just been what was written before. Does that make sense? All right, moving on. Budget. Budget's one of the biggest areas that either gets overlooked, gets skimmed, gets, very little love. I know budgets aren't fun with everybody, but budgets are important when it comes to us, judging what was happening here. Like I mentioned earlier, we expect the big museums to do big things. The small museums often work their magic, and I always start off our presentation with, level 1 museums, the little museums that could, because they're the little museums that could. They work their magic. If you got a grant, let us know. The Humanities Tennessee folks, we love them so much. They love TAM so much. They help so many of the smaller museums out, even the bigger museums. If you got a grant from anywhere, let us know, every little bit. And this is key too. Don't forget your staff time. That's important time. How much time did you spend researching? How much time did you spend doing the installation? How much time did you spend writing the text? Staff time is so important, and that should be a big part of your budget. So don't leave that out. All right. Another thing that we come up with on a pretty regular basis is we're having to reshuffle some things. Somebody will enter something into a category and we'll think, maybe it should go into a different category. So here's a perfect example. Nomination comes in for a 2-day festival that includes living history, a book signing, and an unveiling of a new permanent exhibit. The nominee put this in the permanent exhibit category. You think that's where it should go? We'd probably talk about it. Well, permanent exhibit, should it go under education public programming because of this festival that they had? Or maybe should it go under special event to encompass everything? I think we'd probably choose special event, and we'd probably shuffle it to special event. It's not that you do anything wrong. Sometimes we just feel like something's going to fit into a category better than where it's at. If something like that happens and you have questions, let us know. We'll be happy to explain why we did it, what we thought was, the reasoning behind it. So that's one reason things get moved around. Another one, somebody clicks the wrong box. That happens a lot. They click special event, they meant special recognition, or they click permanent exhibit, they meant temporary exhibit. It happens, it's no big deal. But the biggest reason that we have to reshuffle is because staff don't talk to each other. This happened to us last year with a large museum, a category 5, I think, museum. They entered a nomination just about in every category, but there were 2 or 3 categories that had 2 or 3 nominations. We only accept 1 nomination per category. So you can't nominate 2 temporary exhibits, right? You'd have to think of if you want to nominate both exhibits, you'd have to think about another way to do that. Oftentimes we find that these large museums that have a curator working on this exhibit and a curator working on this exhibit and a curator working on this exhibit don't talk. So they're all thinking, oh, I'm going to nominate my exhibit for a TAM award. And then we get 3 in the same category. And it's like, okay, what are we going to do? We've unfortunately had to disqualify some nominations before simply because we can't find a place to put them. And I hate that. That's what hurts my heart the most, because everybody puts so much care and passion into all of their nominations. And for us having to disqualify something because we simply can't find a place to put it because every other category is already filled up by something else, that's the worst. So if you're in one of these big museums, make sure all your folks are talking to each other, right? Make sure everybody knows, hey, are you going to nominate this? Because I was thinking of nominating this. Make sure you're talking to each other. All right.
Hey, Tori, before you move on, I had a budget question come in asking about, would you like the budgets like itemized or detailed? Like what's the best way to do that budget setup?
That's a great question. I think if your budget is pretty straightforward, it doesn't necessarily need to be itemized. I think if you just follow the categories that are listed on the form, I'm looking real quick here. We've got organization expenditures, which is your staff time, research time, installation time, external sources if you get private donations, things that are on loan, in-kind services, volunteer time, things that are donated, services that are donated, and then other, which is including grants. I think that's really all it needs to be. I don't think it needs to be, down to the penny. We spent $36 on paper and we spent $45 on snacks. I don't think we need to be that detailed. I think just chunks of budgeting. Does that answer the question? If for some reason you have nominated your nomination to another organization that did require more detail, then you can certainly submit that. I wouldn't necessarily want you to have to, go back and do it all over again. We're not going to say no, but I don't think you have to do that specifically for our purposes.
Right. She said that did answer her question. And I had another one come in for your next slide on the category for temporary exhibitions. Can we apply with an exhibition that was developed by an invited outside curator in partnership with the applying organization?
I believe so. Chris, did you have thoughts on that one?
Developed and invited by an outside curator in partnership. I think what we've done in the past and kind of where we've had discussions is the level of partnership and how much the nominating organization was involved. Because I know at the Tennessee State Museum, we hosted a National Archives exhibit at one point. And it was their exhibit. We used our space. We partnered. We worked with them as far as getting it into the space, but that's not something we would have nominated because it wasn't technically our exhibit. But as far as like, oh, we invited this person to come in as a outside curator to help us with an exhibit and partner that, I would think that would be something that would be you could nominate as your organization because it seems like it was kind of led by and taken on by your organization. I don't know if that phrasing helps at all.
And like I told somebody else that had a question that they weren't sure about, if you're not sure, submit the nomination and make some specific notes. We're not sure if this qualifies, but this is why we think it does. And then that gives the committee a heads up, and that gives us, talking points, things that we can discuss when we get together as a committee. So never be afraid to turn something in. If you're not sure, just put that in the notes somewhere and we'll look it over. Anything else, Debbie, before we move on?
Nope, I'm done right now, but I'll get you some more.
Okay. All right, so we have kind of the standard nominations for like exhibits, programs, events, that type of thing, but we do have some nominations that need a narrative. These are the ones that aren't as black and white. We can't go, well, yes and no, and yes and no, and here's a 5 and here's a 4. We need to know a little bit more. And those categories include volunteerism, community support, and institutional impact. So what we would like you to do is to fill out, the basic information, who's making the nomination, what museum you're from, your contact information, all of that. But then we're going to need you to give us a 500-word essay, basically, as to why you're nominating this particular person, this organization, or this group. These are fairly new categories: community support and institutional impact. Ones that we added a couple of years ago, but ones that we feel are super important for their recognition. And we've had some really good nominations and good winners in these 2 categories. When you get those nominations written up, you can send them to a Gmail address that I'm going to show you here on a different slide. We also have an emerging museum professionals category. These are the up and coming folks in your museum, the ones that are going to do some really great things in the future, that have been in the business less than 5 years. Those are also a narrative nomination, and those go directly to Debbie first. They'll go to tnmuseums@gmail.com. Your other ones are going to go to awards@gmail.com, and those will come to me. And again, like I mentioned, you're going to fill it out up to the nomination information, which starts with the mission statement. From that point on, that's where we need your narrative. You don't need to do anything from that point on. And if you're nominating an individual, photos are really helpful. If you've got somebody that you're nominating for a volunteer award or emerging museum professional or, community support, include the pictures of these people, because these are the ones that I'm going to also use in the presentation, and we want to be able to show their smiling faces and of them in action doing all the things that they're getting nominated for. All right, I think that was all that I had formally to present to y'all. I did want to give you a couple of dates to keep in mind. One is the deadline for nominations is coming up on December 16th. All right, and that's 11:59 p.m. December 16th. And believe me, I have had nominations come in at 11:15 p.m. that night. What we'll do after that point as a committee, the different committee members will look over the nominations from their regions. And if they feel like they could use a little bit of zhuzhing and a little bit of redoing and a little bit of what we've just talked about, that committee member will reach out to that nominee and say, hey, maybe you should look at rewriting this, or maybe you should add some more information here. We have another deadline for that resubmission, and that deadline is January 17th. So it gives you about a month. Yeah, Christmas and the holidays are in there, but hopefully it's not a big redo. It shouldn't be a complete redo. It should just be a couple of things that maybe need a little bit of tweaking. The committee then is going to meet February 16th and 17th, and that's when we'll make our decisions. All of this information is on the website. There is, again, the list of committee members. So if you're not sure who your committee member is, check it out on the list and reach out to them. We have the guidelines. I'm gonna share real quick the guidelines here. Hopefully I don't mess anything up. Share. Guidelines. Share. All right. So here's our guidelines that just kind of go over a lot of what we've talked about, how we judge, where to send things, photos, your classifications, and then all of the categories and subcategories and what belongs in each one or doesn't belong in each one. That makes sense. Again, questions about anything like that, reach out to your committee member or reach out to me, and we can help you figure out and decipher what needs to be deciphered. I'm going to share real quick. One more thing. Oh, I'm sharing the wrong thing. Nope, here it is. This is your committee member list, right? As you can see, it's broken down into regions. Some of the bigger regions with the bigger museums in them, we've broken into subgroups. Like Shelby County has its own because there are so many museums in Memphis that regularly nominate. We also have at-large representatives, one for each region, that help the regional representatives if they get bogged down. But this gives you all of the names, all of the contact information, and which county each representative represents. And again, that is on the website. And I did also want to mention that this is being recorded. So if you want to go back and look over something, if you have colleagues that want to look over something, this will be recorded, and this has been recorded and will be available on the website as well.
And Tori, we had a request for your slideshow, and I did let them know in the chat that we'd be able to share that with those that registered for the webinar as well.
Yes, we will be able to do that as well. All right, let's open it up to questions. Any questions? Really? I didn't forget anything. I didn't leave anything out. Y'all
So
are gonna.
can I add a thing? And I apologize if you mentioned it. So everybody, I am not a voting member of the TAM Awards, but I like to sit in while this wonderful team goes through everything in case a question comes up and I'm aware of what's going on. And as Tori mentioned, there's certain things that hurt your heart different ways. And I will say, don't skip any of the questions. When somebody doesn't get, like, they have a pretty strong nomination, but they skip that budget section or whatever, you lose enough points by skipping a section to keep you from getting even a commendation report. So it's just one of those things where you're like, kind of make sure before you hit that submit button. Like maybe you're like, oh, I'm going to go back to that. But we had a few of those last year, and it was a weird year that several people just for some reason skipped a whole section. So just some advice to add on that one.
Good point, Debbie. Thank you very much for that. I had a thought and it went away. Happens a lot. I feel like Dory. Chris, can you think of anything to add?
No, I think you covered everything pretty thoroughly. I like I said, I mean, the committee having 10 members on it and everybody having the big thing I want to say is just check with them. If you have any questions as you're filling this out, please use us. Send us an emails, call us if you need to. That's what we're here for. We try to answer those questions and make sure you guys get the submissions in on time and up to exactly what you want them to be. So by all means, use your regional reps to answer those questions. Don't feel like, oh, this is a silly question, I don't need to ask it, I'll just guess. or something like that. Just no question is too silly for us. We'd rather have it, correct, and you guys be comfortable with it when you send it in, is than us trying to ask about it and try to figure it out ourselves later.
Yeah, and I will add one other thing to this. We are so privileged that we get to see everything that you guys are doing before anybody else. We kind of get the sneak peek, and we get to get excited, and we get to, get amped up about showing off what all everybody's doing. And y'all are doing amazing things. Over and over and over again, every year we get blown away by somebody that's done something so incredible that we just can't stand it. So thank you all for doing what you're doing. This organization is you. You guys are the heart and the soul of TAM, and for us to be able to celebrate you and what you're doing is one of the best things. So I tell everybody all the time, we've got the best committee out there. So grateful for my team, grateful for what we get to do, and grateful for all the hard work you all are doing. We want to be able to honor and recognize that too. Any other questions before we wrap it up? All right, you guys. Thanks everybody for joining in. We will make sure that the recording and the slideshow are on the website very, very soon. And we look forward to seeing all of your amazing nominations flow in the next month. So send them in. We're ready.
And just a final thank you, Tori, as well as Chris and Debbie, for putting all this together for us on our award submission guidelines and what to expect. Again, we're very proud of all the work that the Tennessee museums are doing. And again, this award process is about the things that are happening at your individual sites that inspire us and inspire the rest of the community. So the committee is very responsive and excited to get your submissions in. So at any point, if there are any questions, again, we will have the recording available for all of you, as well as the slideshow information, all the deadlines that you'll need to know, and again, the wonderful committee as responsive individuals who want to see you succeed in your submissions.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And if we don't see you soon, we'll see you in March in Knoxville.
Thank you all for being here, and y'all have a wonderful day.